Do you know how to Freizeitpark? Hallo, ich bin Stefan Burian. Zusammen mit meinen Gästen gewähre ich dir hier in diesem Podcast einen Einblick hinter die Kulissen der Freizeitattraktion. In verschiedensten Attraktionen weltweit konnte ich mir in den letzten 15 Jahren eine großartige Expertise aufbauen, die ich aus den Bereichen Operations, HR und Entertainment mit euch teilen möchte. Möchtest du neben den hier zu hörenden Insights weitere Hilfestellungen? Mit meinem Amusement Business Support helfe ich deinem Team und dir, ein nachhaltiges Erlebnis für MitarbeiterInnen und Gäste zu schaffen. Mehr zu meinem Service erfährst du unter www.stefanburian.com oder direkt per Mail an contact@stefanburian.com. Bleibt auf dem neuesten Stand und abonniert diesen Podcast gerne auf Spotify und iTunes und folgt mir gerne auf Instagram @howtofreizeitpark, auf Twitter @howtofreizeit. Für weitere Informationen zum Podcast und den passenden Shownotes zu jeder Folge schaut auf der Podcast-Webseite vorbei www.howtofreizeitpark.de. Und nun viel Spaß mit der neuen Folge How to Freizeitpark, dem Business-Podcast für Freizeitschaffende.
Very unusual for my podcast is having not German-speaking people as guests, but sometimes we need to reach out to other countries because there are so many different stories and people to introduce. And today I have the pleasure to speak with somebody who has a very historical attraction. And I think all of the coaster nerds outside and also all the operators know it. It's Blackpool Pleasure Beach. And I'm happy to have you here, Amanda Thompson. Hi.
Hi, Stefan.
Amanda, just for the people who don't know who you are, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Amanda Thompson, OBE, CEO and Managing Director of Blackpool Pleasure Beach.
All right. So for how long have you been there right now?
I've been in this position since 2004.
So that's quite a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time now, yeah.
It's next year you have your 20th anniversary.
Oh, so I do. But I'm not sure I'll celebrate it because it's a family business and that would mean I'd be celebrating my father dying, so I won't be doing that.
Okay, fair enough. So it's a family business. For how long is the park in your family?
My great-grandfather built the park in 1896. He studied marketing in New York. And then he decided when he was there, he went one day to Coney Island and saw what was happening in Coney Island. And he bought a ride, brought it back to England. And then he originally he thought he was going to go up the East Coast and maybe start the park in Brighton, or then he went further north, Scarborough, and then he came across because at the time it was the Industrial Revolution, cotton was being made, everything was happening in the northwest of England. Yeah. The train lines were going in, so he developed Blackpool Pleasure Beach in Blackpool because the trains went there. And it was a simple story, and it's quite a cool story actually. Yeah. So that's how everything began with the park in 1896.
Yeah. And that's also, I believe, the story of Blackpool, right? Because Blackpool is a very traditional city with lots of leisure activities.
Yeah, the tower was built just before us. And so Blackpool Tower is a little bit older, but a tiny bit older.
Just a tiny bit.
Just a tiny bit older than the Pleasure Beach. But what was exciting about Blackpool is it was created as a holiday destination and also a little bit of a spa town for people coming from the cotton mills. And it wasn't just the people that worked at the cotton mills, it was also the people that owned the cotton mills. Yeah. So it was a very exclusive resort, and also it was a resort that sort of transcended all types of people from all types of all walks of life. And so that was something that was very different. And Blackpool was certainly an exciting place to be in those days. In fact, when you look at all our old pictures of what was happening in the town then, it was very much you dressed in your Sunday best and you went out and you promenaded up and down the promenade and then you went to the Pleasure Beach, or you went down a pier, or you went up Blackpool Tower, or we of course have the very famous Tower Ballroom in Blackpool.
Yes.
And so if you like ballroom dancing, people would do ballroom dancing. So there is something in Blackpool for everyone.
Yeah.
And of course the Pleasure Beach.
Of course. And what my experience was when I was working in Alton Towers, I nearly spent every second or third weekend in Blackpool because I enjoyed the atmosphere and enjoy the historical part of that. You have like when you're walking about the main street, you have the seaside, and you can really imagine how was it back then. But of course, there's been some changes, some social things that happened. But right now, Blackpool is getting up again on the. I think on the game.
Blackpool is due for a lot of rejuvenation and a rebirth. And I think the great thing about Blackpool is we've always had a core amount of people that really love the resort. Yeah. And through generations, people bring their kids back. So I always say there's a little bit of Blackpool in everyone that comes, everybody in the UK, because if you haven't been there, you've certainly heard of it. And really, a lot of people preempt it and say they're not going to enjoy it, not going to like it. But, I challenge people once they've been to say that they don't like it. Yes, we don't always have the best weather. And yes, it can be windy, it can be rainy, and it can be very cold. But it does, as you say, have amazing atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. It's like those places like when you see like how was it back then in the days, some kind of nostalgia hanging around, especially in your park when you have all the wooden roller coasters, the very rare and old ones. Yes. And but the park is also changing. So especially when you look back at Valhalla, which has recently opened, refurbished. So how is that for you having this old park coming up into the new century?
I think what's really exciting about our park is it evolves constantly. And I think it's important that all parks evolve. And nobody wants to go back to something that's the same all the time. Yeah. And I think what's exciting about Pleasure Beach is we have a very good mix of old and a very good mix of new. And I think that over the years, my family have been quite clever in choosing the right rides for the park. And I think that creates the exciting atmosphere that we have. And it is a very buoyant atmosphere. Yeah. And everyone feels happy as soon as you've parked your car and you've got out of the car, you're in your happy space when you're at Pleasure Beach. And I think it's a very unique atmosphere. And it may not be everybody's kettle of fish, but it's certainly one. If you want to ride great coasters, we have them. We have good wooden roller coasters, and of course, my grandfather named the Big Dipper, and that was the very first Big Dipper. So he really coined the phrase Big Dipper.
All right, that's a cool fact. Didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go. He also called the ghost train. Before that, it was a pretzel ride. Yeah. And so he was quite inventive with names. And so because the park's been there for so many years, there's quite a few things that are called after Pleasure Beach, after things that are in existence today at the Pleasure Beach. Yeah. So it's an exciting place to work with so much history and heritage.
And as you are now the managing part of the park, also making strategic decisions, how important is it for you to look into the future and make long-term sustainable decisions to be on top of the game?
Well, you have to be on top of the game because when it's a family business, it's a different type of business. I do have shareholders to answer to, but they're my brother and my sister. So that's not easy. And sometimes I think maybe it's better if you work in the corporate world because it's not always easy working with the family. But, I think really what's good is we all know what the history of the park is. We all know what my grandfather would have done, what my father would have done, and so it's exciting to know what we decide to do and build for the future is really, I think, a gut instinct. Sure, and I think that we have that gut instinct. It's built in us, and I think it's exciting to work like that because clearly we plan. We don't just say it's gut instinct. We clearly plan everything very carefully. Yeah. And I think one of the differences has been building hotels because it took us a long time to get to that point where we could build hotels.
Really?
And we don't get funding from the government or anything like that for our parks. And everything that we do, we reinvest back into the parks, be it a new ride or a hotel. I certainly believe that hotels are a great way forward because it lengthens people's stay there. And I think really truthfully, it's exciting to know that what we do at the park is what people want.
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
Yeah. Making people happy. Yeah. When you look back, when you are trying to transform and bring new, fresh ideas into the park, and some old rides have to leave, is it always like a heartbreak for you?
It's not a heartbreak for me, no, because I know that what I want to do will bring a memory for somebody new coming to the park.
Yeah.
It's very heartbreaking for those die-hard fans of the Pleasure Beach.
Sure.
Because they get really mad at me.
Oh,
I get
no.
lots of hate mail and they get really cross. But, you know, that sort of wears away when they see what we're putting in, and then they like what we put in. And you can't always choose somebody's favourite ride to go in when you've taken away something that was part of their growing up. And
Sure.
and but kids form memories about things that happened to them during their holidays or on a day out, and they don't want that to change.
Yeah.
But I think it's important that they change, and truthfully, amusement parks have to change to stay alive.
Sure.
And that's something that's really important for every so-called nerd to take on board, because it's really at Pleasure Beach, you know, we've got a tiny space there.
Yeah.
It's only 42 acres, and that's not a big space to work with. So in order to bring in the new, I have to take out some of the old.
Yeah.
So that's just how it works.
But what was the biggest takeaway, the attraction when it was brought down? Where was the crowd most upset?
Oh gosh, it's to be fair, it happens every time we take anything out.
Right, okay.
It's an equal amount of upset. It's just a different group of fans.
Okay.
It's everyone gets upset because I think they take ownership of it because they've got so many happy memories of it.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And it's just, I'm not taking away their memory. I'm
Yeah.
just taking away that so they can't relive it again and again and again. And I'm giving them a new memory. So hopefully they see that at the end of the day.
Yeah, sounds like a fair deal.
I hope so. I hope
But
so.
what you mentioned is that you have really limited space, and my first time when I went to Blackpool was, I don't know, 2014, 15, quite a long time ago, and my first thought was, wow, that's a little bit like Phantasialand.
Yeah.
You have that limitation, you have your borders, and they are done, they are cemented for a lifetime. You can't really go outside, so you have to be creative.
Yeah.
So what is it to make you think creative? Is it
I think, well, you can ask Robert the same thing because he's very creative.
Yeah.
And I think I'm lucky because I knew Robert's father very, very well. And so I grew up going to Phantasialand with my parents. And so I've known Robert for a long time. I knew his dad and his mum. And so I've been very friendly with the Loffelhart family for many, many years. So
Yeah.
I think it's quite nice to be, in a way, compared with Phantasialand because we do both have limited space. But Robert has done a superb job of creating his stamp on his park. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
He has really, really changed the way people look at Phantasialand and visit it. I mean, hats off to him.
Yeah.
What a great job he's done. Fantastic.
And he's getting backlash as well. If you just see or look back when they cancelled all the annual passes and didn't bring them back in the game. Well, that was a thing, but it makes sense at the end of the day. If you have limited space and limited capacity, of course you want to have the fans inside, but also you want to have the full payers inside and families.
I think what's really difficult is understanding your market.
Yeah.
And when you've got such a limited space, when things like COVID came along,
Yeah.
really, we all had to cancel our annual passes because that was something that we just couldn't run with because it just didn't make sense. We wouldn't have parks today if we had to keep them going. And so I think it's very hard for people to understand the actual business behind the business that we're throwing at people.
Yeah.
And you know, really, they shouldn't know the intricacies of it. But I fully appreciate that people get very upset when you take something away from them. But, you know, season passes are great if you want to go every week.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it would be nice that all those people that had season passes were really positive about everything that happened, because sometimes they go so often, they take everything for granted and they believe that they sort of own a bit of the park, and that can be quite difficult.
Yeah.
And it is difficult because I don't want people not to have a good time when they come to the park. I want people to have a great time when they come to the park. And I don't want people to walk around criticizing certain areas that maybe need another coat of paint quickly. But you don't always have time or the money available to be able to do that constantly. And they compare you to the likes of Disney, which they go to once a year. And it is complicated for all of us that have these family-owned parks that try and produce something that's going to give pleasure to a lot of people. And it is difficult. But you know what? I'm grateful for everyone coming to the park because, you know, at the end of the day, fans are great for us, and it's really important that we embrace them and we listen to what they say. Sometimes I take notice, sometimes I don't, but you know, at the end of the day, I have to run my business as a business, and I can't always kowtow to what I'd like to. Well, I can't do what I'd like to do, let alone what they want to do. So it is difficult.
So when you look at your usual day, you have a family business, you are operating a theme park, and you have also a huge amount of entertainment products. What is your normal day looking at Blackpool?
Well, we do have a lot of entertainment. Entertainment is, well, show business is really my passion. I began in this industry with a company called Stageworks Worldwide Productions. I set that company up, and I began working in parks in America. And then a lot of people will know that I did 13 years of the ice show at Europa Park, and I did other shows, dinner shows at Europa Park for them too. So I did shows at Efteling, at Liseberg, in Siam Park in Thailand. I did shows all over the world, and so I really loved that side of the business. And then sadly, when my father died, I wasn't able to continue doing both the way I did the shows previously. So I still have shows at Pleasure Beach, which is great, and I'm still lucky to be able to do that. But I don't go out and do shows as much as I'd like to do. But I do, when people ask me to do a show for them, of course I go and do it, because it's my secret little love.
How important is live entertainment for theme parks?
I think live entertainment's very important, because I think it is another way of coping with reality. When you're sitting there, you're watching something live with your family, with your children, with your friends, and it's a memory you share together when you watch that production live. And I personally believe it's as important as a roller coaster. But that's my view. Not everyone agrees with me, but I really think that that sort of memory can last longer than a thrill of going on a single roller coaster, because you suddenly remember certain little things in the show and you talk about it for a longer time. And so I believe live entertainment is very, very valuable and very important, because it keeps people talking as a unit.
Yeah, sure. And when you have live entertainment combining with IPs, because we have Nickelodeon Land, you have those big IPs running about, especially I believe for children, which is the target group. Is it important to have such rememberable things inside, or would you say theme parks would also work without IPs?
Well, I think theme parks work very, 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 very happily without IPs. But there comes a time when you need to develop a certain area. We developed Nickelodeon Land because I needed to change our kiddies park area. Everything needed a refresh, everything needed a renew. And did I want to just put new rides in? And I thought, no, I don't want to just put new rides in. I want to give people something different. And so my brother and I went and spoke with Nickelodeon, and we signed a contract with them, and we're still with them today, and we're still working. I'm very pleased to be working with them today. But Nickelodeon is very different. It's very differently perceived in the UK than it is in Germany. And I think that in England, people don't understand that Nickelodeon is the brand and the TV channel, and the characters sit beneath it. So SpongeBob and Dora and Paw Patrol, they're all brands within Nickelodeon. And so sometimes it's a bit hard, and I think everyone in Germany knows that Nickelodeon is the home of those brands. And so it's slightly conflicting. So it is quite difficult sometimes for us, but we work with Aardman as well, which is of course Wallace and Gromit.
I love this ride so much. It is, especially when you stand there in the queue line and listen to the theme song all the time. I mean, it might be difficult or different for the workers,
operator.
For the operator, they're standing all the day, but I really enjoyed it so much. It's such a lovely dark ride.
It's a great ride,
Yeah.
isn't it? But of course you won't remember it before, because that was another ride that was reimagined, because
Yeah.
prior to that it was the gold mine.
Yeah.
And that was a ride that my grandfather built. And so that was a bit, for me, a bit nerve-wracking going to do that. But, you know, my father's wish was to have Wallace and Gromit at the park. And so we were lucky that we could work with Nick Parks and create that ride. And we worked with, who did we work with on that ride? Nick Farmer. And he helped us a lot. And I know that it's a really, I love that ride. I know Andreas Andersen also loves that ride. So I think we're very lucky that we could create such a great attraction there with those characters.
Yeah. And that's what I meant, and you mentioned as well, that you have the mix between nostalgia, old rides, and the new, fresh, modern things in between. But what do you think, what is the future? That's very generic, typical CEO question. What is the future of theme parks?
Well, do you know what? I don't... I'd like to build more hotels.
Yeah.
I'd obviously like to have more shows, but I certainly like to build more hotels. I'd like to get more people to our resort and to really, really enjoy Pleasure Beach, because I think it's a very different park to every other park in the UK. And I think that what would be really exciting is to make sure that Blackpool as a town, not just Pleasure Beach, has a long future. And that's really important to me.
So how is your work then within the community? Is it like that you're really bonded to the community, to the city?
Well, I personally am.
Yeah.
And it's very important that we are, but it's very difficult because the council own a lot of the other attractions within the resort.
Okay.
So they own the tower where Merlin sits, they own the sandcastle where the swimming pool sits, they own the winter gardens where the opera house is, they own the building where Madame Tussauds is, and so it goes on and on and on. So is there a conflict of interest? Yes, there is. And it's complicated.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Facebook status, it's complicated.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's complicated.
Or is it? But when you, I mean, it's competition, but also, as we can see here right now, we are kind of a family. We're working together because we have one main goal together.
I think the one thing about the amusement park industry that's very different from, say, the car industry, we all share information.
Yes, yeah.
And you don't get that in many businesses at all. And we all talk to each other and we all share experiences, share ideas about products and all different things. And we're all friends. And I think that's what's really good. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. There'll always be an amusement park or an amusement attraction or something in the leisure industry. And you can walk in and you can say that you're a member of IAAPA, and they'll talk to you, and you suddenly have a new friend in a different part of the world. And I think that's really unique in our industry. You certainly don't get that if you work in the car industry.
I believe that. So, a typical interview question: what was your biggest learning?
Well, I think every day you're learning, and I think the biggest thing that I learn is you have to learn to be flexible and to be good at change. And I think that's quite hard. When you're running a business that's a family-owned business, it's quite hard to understand that you have to be that flexible and really move forward as quickly as we do.
Yeah.
But change it's really important to understand change, and I think it's really important to understand people.
So, in between my listeners, there are many park operators in Germany, mostly, of course, family-owned. What would you give them as an advice when they want to grow and want to try out new things?
Well, if they're park owners, they'll know me, so they can ring me. But I wouldn't like to give any park owner advice because I'd have to know what park it was.
Yeah.
So there's no one set thing that you have to tell people to do. But I think what's exciting is to know that every person who has a park, especially a family-owned park, that they have passion for what they do.
Yeah.
And that is the most important thing. And I think when you have family-owned and run businesses, it's the passion that you don't always see in a corporate park.
I that you say that, it's very interesting because there are a few corporations like Merlin. You already mentioned it. I worked a couple of years with them, and if you know Merlin, they're doing some things all right, some things I would also criticize. What would you say? Would Blackpool Pleasure Beach work within a corporation?
I don't think so. I really don't. I really don't. Well, not as it stands today.
Yeah.
And not with the staff that I have working there today, because they're very much they very much work for a family business, and they're very passionate about what they do. And I think when you work for a corporation, you don't always have that passion. And I'm not saying you don't have it, but you don't always have it. And I think it's very important to have passion.
Yeah. And one last thing. We are talking a lot of young professionals, next generation. That's a huge thing. Everybody is trying to recruit new staff. All countries, every part of the world has a problem to get new staff. What would you say to new generations? What would your advice be when they want to set foot within this industry?
Well, I think it's very important to have a good background, a good education. We're lucky we run a lot of apprenticeships, so people can come in and work as an apprentice in our engineering department, in our catering department. So we have a lot of apprenticeships. So that's really helpful.
Yeah.
I think also what's helpful is understanding that it's not a normal industry. It's not a 9-to-5 industry. And I think people get very confused, and they think, well, they want to work from 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock. And that doesn't happen within our industry. And so people have to be very flexible if they want to work in our industry. And that can be very difficult to manage. And to get new people to come to work in our industry, they have to really want to, because they have to understand that it's not normal. It's not the real world. You're entering a sort of fantasy world that provides you with a living.
Sorry that I have to laugh so hard about it, but it's true. It is normal. If you used to offices and back office and all that stuff, it is not that alike. It is really completely different, and we behave completely different. We talk different to each other.
Yeah.
And the organization is not a normal company.
It's not normal, but what is normal is the jobs within it are normal. If you're cleaning loos, you're cleaning bathrooms, aren't you? That's the same as you will be doing anywhere. If you're making food, you're making food, and you could be doing that anywhere. So if you take them all out separately, they're very normal jobs.
Yeah.
But they're in a very different atmosphere.
Yeah.
And that's what makes our industry unique and fun. And it is challenging at times, and it is difficult sometimes getting people to really understand the complexities of everything coming together within an amusement park and working like that. But what is great is that we have some job there to suit everyone.
Yeah.
And that's
true.
exciting.
Yeah.
And we can provide people with a really good livelihood. And it's exciting and interesting having new young people working for us. I love young people coming in. I'm particularly upset from Brexit, because I used to have a lot of people coming from all over Europe coming to work for me. And I really loved that. I really liked having people from different countries and everyone experiencing different ways of life and cultures. And it was really added to everything.
Yeah.
And that's sort of been taken away from us without our help. Well, we certainly didn't want it.
Yeah. And I can really say, if you want to have an experience about what is it to be living in the UK, the West Midlands is the best part. I think I really spent I lived in near Stoke-on-Trent, which is maybe not the best place, but it's authentic. The people are very nice, and you can also reach like Blackpool, Manchester, Liverpool. It's all around you.
Everything's very easy to get to. It's a small country. It's a little island. You have to remember that. England's a little island. Well, Great Britain's a little island.
Yeah.
And it is full of really great places to go. Lots of nooks and crannies to investigate in England. Well, Great Britain.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you had a good time there.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And sometimes I really miss it, to be honest, because the people getting around and the socializing, it's not comparable with Germany. And also, when you look at attractions-wise, in Germany you can't really be creative as you people in the UK are. Especially in London, trying new things out, trying new kinds of concepts. And when you go back to Germany, it's like, I don't know what it is, so I won't go there. It's difficult.
Well, it is difficult, but I think we all overcome things in different ways. And I think that's what's exciting about our industry and our business. I'm glad you had a good time.
Yeah, I really had. And Amanda, if you would change one thing in this industry, what would it be?
The weather. For me, it will be the weather, because it will be nice to have at least 300 days of lovely weather. It doesn't have to be boiling hot, but just lovely weather. I can cope with 65 raining days, 60 days of rainy days.
Yeah.
I can cope with that, but too many is too much. We get too many.
It's stereotypical when you say that. That's a lot of rainy days in the UK, but there are. I was really surprised about that. It's not a rumor or stereotype. Really, I had like a week of summer.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah,
it's really bad. But you sort of get used to it, and
yeah, you do.
The worst thing is, though, when you have an amusement park, people expect to go on a nice day, a sunny day, and they want to plan. And unfortunately, you can't plan, and make great budgets work for you, because you could have a summer like we've just had in England, and that's been dreadful, dreary weather.
Oh, dear.
June was fabulous, and then the rain started in July, and it's still raining today. I don't think it's stopped, but we're all still there, we're all still going, and we're still open.
Yeah, we can't. That's the only thing we can't control, really. That's a good point. We can do marketing, we can do, I don't know, refurbishments, new rides, but it doesn't matter if you have bad weather.
Yeah, bad weather's not good. None of us like bad weather.
Yeah, or too hot, like this year.
No, you don't want too hot. You don't want. It's a
the
bit
sweet spot. We need the sweet spot.
We have a Goldilocks syndrome, I call it. Too wet, too rainy, too windy. It's like we don't want anything too extreme.
Yeah. Amanda, thank you so much for
pleasure.
your time. And of course, if you haven't heard about Blackpool Pleasure Beach, I dare you, go to the UK, visit it. It's one of the most exciting parks we have in Europe. Amanda, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you.
Schlussbremse, ab in die Station, Bügel auf, das war's. Liebe Freizeitschaffende, diese Fahrt ist nun vorbei. Der Ausgang befindet sich auf der rechten Seite. Vergisst nicht, auf dem Weg nach draußen eure Taschen mitzunehmen und diesen Podcast auf iTunes und Spotify sowohl zu bewerten als auch zu abonnieren. Wenn ihr Anmerkungen, Feedback und Themenwünsche habt, dann schreibt mir doch gerne über Instagram @howtofreizeitpark, über Twitter @howtofreizeit oder direkt per Mail an contact@stefanburian.com. Aktuelle Informationen und Shownotes zum Podcast findet ihr auf www.howtofreizeitpark.de. Wenn ich dich neugierig gemacht habe und du das Potenzial deiner Freizeitattraktion für MitarbeiterInnen und Gäste nutzen möchtest, unterstütze ich dich gerne mit meiner Expertise. Mehr zu meinen Dienstleistungen findest du unter www.stefanburian.com und vereinbare direkt einen Termin per Mail unter contact@stefanburian.com. Vielen Dank fürs Zuhören, habt eine hervorragende Woche und bis bald!